Hey everyone, I'm Lisa Jordan, and welcome to MenoPositive.
I got a good feeling.
Where we take a refreshingly positive approach to navigating menopause. If you're looking for practical tips, expert advice, and honest conversations, think of this as your personal pick and mix for how to optimize your body. Although we can't prevent menopause, we can redefine it. And that journey starts now. Quick favor before we start. If you're enjoying these conversations, please hit follow and rate the show. It helps more women find us, and it means I can keep bringing you brilliant guests and empowering conversations. How many times have you been told to buy organic, swap your plastic Tupperware for glass, add more fiber to your diet, move your body, eat more cruciferous vegetables, which, let's be honest, I can barely pronounce, never mind remember what counts as one. It's a lot. No wonder there are memes about how overwhelming menopause advice can feel. Add hormones into the mix: estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, and don't forget cortisol. It's complicated, right? And then there is hormone replacement therapy. For many women, HRT is life-changing. But the conversations around it tend to focus on symptom relief. End of. Today, I want to share with you just something I discovered, and it has blown my mind. I'm like, why isn't anybody talking about this more? Here it is. Are you ready? Did you know it's not just whether you take HRT, it's how your body metabolizes it that can make the biggest difference? Let me explain what I mean. Estrogen, as we all know, is a critical hormone, right? It's central to ovulation and reproduction, but bone health, brain function, blood sugar regulation. But like all things in life, it's about balance. Too little estrogen, and there may be higher risks of digestive issues or osteoporosis, maybe Alzheimer's. Too much estrogen, and we see endometriosis and autoimmune conditions. So if you're not metabolizing estrogen properly, it won't work the way it's meant to. In fact, it might work against you. What if I told you there are simple, everyday things you can do to support your body's hormone metabolism? That flaxseed your nutritionist said to add to your yogurt, those cruciferous vegetables your personal trainer wants you to eat more of, that fiber we're not getting enough of, they all play an important role in enhancing the impact of your HRT, making it safer, more effective, and better tailored to you. Now, doctors don't talk to you about estrogen metabolism, not because it isn't important, but because it's complex and it's deeply individual. But that doesn't mean it's not critical to your long-term health. And that's why I am so excited to share today's conversation with you. It was my guest, Flora Budenberg, who brought this to my attention during another enlightening phone conversation, to which I said, we need to do an episode on this. Flora is a clinical nutritionist, certified health coach, and founder of Peach Health, a data-led personalized nutrition company for women interested in optimizing their bodies. She is also trained in nutritional psychiatry and functional medicine and is here to explain how nutrition and diet can become your best allies when it comes to getting the most out of your HRT. Flora, welcome to MenoPositive.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be back. I feel so strongly about this topic. So I'm really thrilled to be able to talk it through.
Well, I remember calling you and saying, you know what, Flora, I think I'm ready to start,
Yes.
microdosing some HRT. I'm just really interested to see if it can enhance things a little bit. And you were like, okay, right. Did you know this? We need to do this. And I was like, what? What? I've never even heard this thing about the different pathways on how you metabolize estrogen. And I was like, we need to do an episode on this. So, Flora, okay. So the conversations around HRT
Yeah.
are, to me, they're like black and white. They can be polarizing. You're either on it or you're not on it. But it's not that simple, is it?
No, I think you're absolutely right. It seems to me, from my kind of clinical experience and from what we see at Peach, it seems to be a very binary conversation where either women are choosing to take the HRT or they're kind of going down the diet and lifestyle route to try and manage their symptoms. And there's a real missing piece in how we can use nutrition to change the way and improve the way that HRT is kind of operating in the body, and also to minimize kind of side effects and risks. So what I see quite often is women who are on hormone replacement therapy, who are still experiencing symptoms. Maybe the symptoms are sort of partially managed, or perhaps new symptoms have emerged. And the medical approach is generally to up the dose to try and get some kind of efficacy, rather than think about how we can support the body to use those hormones better. And that is, quite easy to do and fully influenced by nutrition. So it just is a real opportunity for us to work with women to feel better.
Let's remember that estrogen and progesterone and hormones, they all have a very wonderful and important role to play in our bodies. And in a healthy body, the estrogen and progesterone, they need to be in balance. And when they're not balanced, that's where these issues come up. Is that right?
Yeah, that's correct. So you want to have them in the right sort of ratio to each other. Ideally, you don't want to have too much estrogen relative to your progesterone. But it's also, whenever we're giving a hormone or we're making a hormone in our own body, we have to think not just about the production, the total number. We also have to think about the liver, which is responsible for reformatting that hormone to get it into the cell so that you can use it. If that process isn't happening, you can keep going up and you aren't going to be able to extract the benefits from the hormone. And then you also have to think about excreting that hormone, clearing that hormone out so that it isn't reabsorbed and start to kind of accumulate. So we always want to be thinking about those aspects of hormone health as well as a sort of absolute number.
And when we talked about it, you said it's, how your body metabolizes the hormone. And to me, that word metabolize, I connected with, it's how I digest my food. Like everybody says, you have a good metabolism, you have a slow metabolism. So to me, I kind of thought, that just means like how I digest it. And you said, well, actually, no, when I say metabolize, that means how it's actually how your body, okay, you say it, you explain it. Because there are, the way I understand it, it is a 3-step process.
Yes.
So walk us through this 3-step process.
Absolutely. So we metabolize a hormone in order to be able to use it. So we transform it. It goes down a little pathway that means that it's more available to the body. We then start to detoxify it. So that it doesn't accumulate. And then finally we excrete it via the bowel. So I think it probably is interesting to talk about estrogen specifically here, and when we're thinking about estrogen metabolism, it's a very contentious topic. So I want to choose my words carefully, but the body is quite wary of estrogen, whether that's estrogen that you've made, whether that's estrogen you're taking through HRT, or whether that's estrogen that's coming in through sort of, xenoestrogens like plastics and those kinds of things. The body considers it something that needs to be treated very carefully. So to illustrate that point, it metabolizes it down the same pathway that it would metabolize paracetamol, so a drug, versus progesterone or DHEA, which are treated quite differently. So that isn't to say that estrogen is sort of toxic or dangerous, but it must be managed. And this is, I think this conversation is actually quite hard to have now because the study, the Women's Health Initiative study, did so much damage. The conversation around, the risks that might be there with estrogen has kind of been stamped on. And I think the point that I want people to remember is the way that you metabolize estrogen can make it protective and safe. So you can send it down a pathway that makes it safe, or you can send it down a pathway where it might potentially become more damaging in some women, pro-inflammatory or proliferative. And what sort of determines which route it goes down is nutrition. So depending on the foods and the nutrients that you're taking in, that will steer estrogen down a safe pathway or a potentially damaging pathway. And there's a genetic thing at play here as well. And so often women are coming to us and they still are fearful. And that's what I really love to explain to people, is that if we can use the diet in a really targeted way and potentially also test to see how we're metabolizing this estrogen, we can ensure that that's as safe as it could possibly be and kind of manage the risk.
And what I love about it as well is that I think sometimes people think this, like HRT, it's a crapshoot. But I love that this makes me feel like I have some control
Absolutely.
over it, because you kind of put it on and then you cross your fingers that the symptoms are going to get better, or, everything's going to be okay. But I love the idea that I can take some action and have some control over it. And that's what I found so interesting about it. Let's go back for 1 second, just to explain, like, I guess how estrogen is broken down,
Mm-hmm.
because in the research I was looking at as well, it does go through a process, and between metabolizing, detoxifying, and excreting, yes, it does go through an interesting process. And not to get too sciencey about
Yeah.
it, but can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so estrogen is metabolized, and those metabolites, those products of the metabolism, you have a sort of 2-hydroxy, 4-hydroxy, or a 16-hydroxy metabolite. And the safe pathway is the 2-hydroxy pathway, where you can use estrogen and it will be less kind of inflammatory in the body. The other two pathways, there are studies showing that those pathways are associated with DNA damage and, potentially carcinogenic effects. Again, I really don't want to be scaremongering because there's so much that we can do here. But you produce those metabolites and they're sort of free in the body. So you then need to detoxify them, because they can go around, estrogen, we have estrogen cells or estrogen receptors in the brain. We have them in the breast tissue. We have them, in most areas of the body. And if they can interact very actively, I suppose, you can have these quite estrogenic effects. So often in perimenopause, we're always thinking about losing the hormones. But of course, firstly, the hormones are spiking sometimes. So they might be quite high. But there is also potential for an estrogen dominant state in this phase, particularly if you've got a lot of estrogen metabolites floating around, interacting with the cell receptors and stimulating effects. Does that make sense?
It does. Well, what I'm hearing, though, I mean, there was a lot of words in there, and the 2 and the 4 and the 6. I'm sure we may have lost a few people. But what I hear, though, is, again, that process can be managed through nutrition,
Yes,
and diet and supplementation. So to take a hot second, can you tell us what is estrogen dominance and why is it
Okay.
becoming such a common issue?
So estrogen dominance is where you have a total higher load of estrogen relative to progesterone. So we want these two hormones in balance in order to feel our best. So they interact with the nervous system in different ways. They can be, progesterone is more calming, estrogen can be more excitatory. That's just a small example. If they're sort of out of whack for whatever reason, and you're in this estrogen dominant state, estrogen stimulates sort of tissue growth, for example. So it might trigger cells to proliferate, and it might lead to various different issues. When you've got too much of a hormone, you can see a lot of the similar symptoms from when you have too little of that hormone. So with an estrogen dominant position, you might see sleep issues, mood issues, weight gain in particular, which is something we see a lot with women where they're taking HRT and they think that might be distinct from the fact that they're gaining weight, and they assume that the weight gain is just because of the phase of life that they're in, because that's so commonly associated with the menopausal transition. But it may be because your detox organs aren't working well enough, the hormones are starting to accumulate, particularly estrogen, and you're starting to see that symptom emerge.
Well, I was going to ask you what are the red flags? What type of things should women look out for? Because I think that's probably an easiest way for them to then know if they should go see and speak to somebody about it.
Yeah, so I would say brain fog, again, it's a lot of overlapping with perimenopausal symptoms, but brain fog, weight gain, sleep issues, and mood changes. So I've had women where they're feeling really not themselves, very tearful, very stimulated, very anxious. And we've, had the privilege to do a Dutch test and not understand the total level of the estrogen, because that isn't actually that relevant after 45, but understand how she's metabolizing it, understand how estrogenic it is. And, she's then been able to take that back to her prescriber and adjust the dose. And we've done a lot of work on helping her to detoxify the estrogen to lead to a position of, the client I'm thinking of in particular, depression and anxiety gone. She was there about to sort of start taking SSRIs, and actually it was linked to that high estrogen load.
Oh, wow. And what about, we talked about once, I told you I had a friend who, like, her breasts would get really enlarged and really sore. Is that another sign?
Absolutely. So if estrogen is accumulating, it has to go somewhere. So it will be stored in the fatty tissue, particularly around the belly and in the breasts. So yes, absolutely, that is a key symptom.
So those are a few of the red flags that people should look out for. And it could be nothing, but it is a great reason for you to call your GP or call your consultant and say, can we get a test done on this?
I would probably, if I was in that position, my first step would be, let's make sure I'm doing everything I possibly can to utilize and detoxify the hormones that I'm taking, and sort of see where I get to, and have a conversation with your doctor, alongside that.
Okay, I'm going to make sure we're all tracking. There's taking hormones, and then there's how we metabolize hormones, which, if you're metabolizing them well, it will really enhance the performance of your HRT and your overall health and well-being. If you're not metabolizing the hormones well, you'll probably see more symptoms or different symptoms, or like you said, there were a few things: weight gain, breast tenderness, or enlargement. So there are a few things there. And if that's happening, then that's kind of a sign to speak to somebody like yourself, like a nutritionist or your doctor, about the things you can do.
We can talk through what the sort of go-to thing would be in those instances. I think those are signs, those are flags from the body that something is off. So I would action that. But I think even if you aren't experiencing those symptoms and you're taking HRT, I do think considering the dietary interventions that help to manage safe estrogen metabolism is critical. So there's a few really specific things that I would be doing if I was taking HRT, and I would be trying to do them daily, and that's whether I'm experiencing symptoms alongside the HRT or not.
Okay, let's
Just
get into that.
Best practice.
Yeah, let's get to it then. Let's do it.
So you mentioned cruciferous vegetables in your intro, which is funny because you and I speak about them all of the time. So just to explain what they are. So crucifers are the sort of family of vegetables that are like sulfur containing. So they have a kind of potent smell, things like kale, cabbage, broccoli, bok choy, Brussels sprouts, cavolo nero, those ones. They are talked about all of the time, and nutritionists are obsessed with them because they contain a compound that changes the way that you metabolize estrogen. It's something called I3C, which you can actually take in supplement format, but you have to be working with a nutrition practitioner to do so. But that I3C is going to massively improve the way that you're using your estrogen. And so you would be wanting to have 2 portions of crucifers daily, one with your lunch, one with your dinner. The potency of the compound is actually reduced if you overcook it. So try and have some of those raw, like your lovely kale salad. I remember you telling me about that kind of thing. Be cautious, don't have, if you're struggling with bloating, a lot of raw crucifers is going to be difficult. If you have a sort of thyroid condition, you also would just want to lightly cook them most of the time, but not always. But I would consider that like a non-negotiable, just including those things on your plate. So that's the first thing. The second thing, again, is like another nutritionist big hitter, which is the flaxseed.
You talk to me about this all the time.
All the time.
I called Flora the other day and I'm like, okay, I'm doing this and this, but I haven't done the flaxseed thing yet. And she goes, just put it together in your fridge. Stick it in your fridge.
It's like such an easy one. And I think people get into the swing of it. And then, obviously as always happens, you get distracted, don't you?
Yeah. Okay. Talk about flaxseed.
So flaxseed contain these lignans, which again are helpful for safe estrogen metabolism. Flaxseeds can also be really helpful for constipation. And I do want to talk about constipation as part of this, because that is really relevant when we're thinking about hormone levels. But with the flaxseed, you have to soak them. They have very hard shells. If you've ever touched them and looked at them and they're not ground, they have very hard shells. You won't be able to access the lignans in them if they aren't soaked. And ideally, you would buy ground flax or ground linseed. That's the same thing, by the way. And you would soak those in water. I was going to bring some.
I could have brought some too, because now I have a stock.
But literally just shove them in a Tupperware, cover them in water. It doesn't matter how much. They will absorb all of the fluid. And then I would, again, almost thinking non-negotiable, 2 tablespoons a day. Stir them through porridge, through yogurt, put them in a smoothie, put them through bolognese, do whatever. Use them as much as you can. They're also a really good thing for children. So, where we're trying to just increase fibre intake for a fussy child, that's a good little tip.
Can I ask a question? Is that 2 tablespoons serving per person?
Yes.
Because if you said stir that in, so that would be put that 2 tablespoons into my serving of bolognese
exactly.
or my serving of yogurt.
Exactly.
Great.
Yeah.
Okay.
And with anything, increase gently. So probably start with a teaspoon, then the next day do a tablespoon. Just go up gently so that you're not suddenly introducing a lot of fibre that your gut microbes are going to feed on. So that's flaxseed. And then the other non-negotiable for estrogen metabolism is sprouted foods. So I think I probably got you to buy the freeze-dried broccoli sprouts. I can't remember.
I couldn't find those, but I did find sprouts.
Yeah, like
in
alfalfa.
Sainsbury's. Yeah, I found a little package of them in Sainsbury's.
Oh, that's good that they're in Sainsbury's.
Yeah.
So you can buy mung bean sprouts, alfalfa sprouts, those fresh sprouts. You can also buy freeze-dried broccoli sprouts. I think they're from Buy Whole Foods online. But anyway, they're a good thing that you can just shove into a smoothie or just sprinkle on things so that you're just kind of doing that every day without having to think about it.
And they don't really taste of anything, do they? So
No.
you can throw those in a smoothie. I was throwing them on a salad.
Yeah, exactly.
As well. That was really
Through
easy.
lentils,
Or just on my dinner, I threw them on top as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so those 3 things I would be just really holding in your mind. If you're on HRT, or also if you're not, they are also helpful things.
This is great guidance just for healthy lifestyle as well.
Absolutely.
Like you said. But I love that cruciferous vegetables, flaxseed, sprouted foods. These are like hormone heroes.
They're hormone heroes, yeah. And I think probably there's a couple of other things that you could be considering. I want to talk a little bit about supplements because they are really powerful in steering estrogen down the right pathway. And, in the absence of knowing exactly what your nutrient status is, it can still be beneficial to take in a lot of antioxidants. So vitamin C is a very safe one. We'll be taking a decent dose of vitamin C and vitamin D during the winter. And a kind of hero supplement here is also glutathione, liposomal glutathione.
Why is that such? I mean, everybody's talking about that.
Yeah.
It is this hero supplement. Why is that?
It's your body's primary antioxidant. So when we're thinking about, really when you trace back, this is a bit of a broad brush statement, but when you trace any chronic disease back, at the root of it, you're likely to find inflammation. So disordered physiology triggering inflammation. And to quench that inflammation, that damage being caused by too much inflammation, glutathione is helpful. It is not it's not like a silver bullet, but it is brilliant.
And you talk a lot about doses as well, because I think I've talked about this on the show before. One time I told you I was taking some curcumin and you're like, how
Yes.
much? And I told you and you're like, well, that's not an effective dose. And I don't think people understand that, because if you just buy a vitamin C and it says take 2,
Yes.
I mean, is it different for everybody, or is there a...
Yeah, it's different for everybody. So with vitamin C, I would usually be starting somebody on 1,000 milligrams. If you get a stomach upset, you've taken too much. It's not really a problem. It will go away the next day. But, I wouldn't be sort of suggesting that everyone starts mega dosing. But yeah, 1,000 milligrams is a good start. With vitamin D, the sort of recommended daily amount for adults in the UK winter is 3,000 IU. So that's where I would start somebody if I didn't know their status. If they have a vitamin D deficiency, then it would need to be more than that. It needs to be taken with K2. And the other thing to say is that the reference ranges on the NHS test, I think, are off. So we want an optimal vitamin D status. We don't just want to be the bottom of the average population. So if you've had it done and they've told you it's normal, maybe just go back and check your NHS app, because we want it to be over 75 nanomolar.
Okay, so that's what you can look at, because now you can go and see
Yeah,
the
it's really
results
good.
yourself.
Yeah, they're doing way better.
exactly.
Yeah.
You said that you wanted to talk about constipation.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, women, poo is a big discussion. And I was talking to somebody the other day, and they have clients coming in and women saying, well, I have a bowel movement like once a week, or, and last time you were on the show, you said every other day for you was considered constipation.
Yes.
Part of that conversation is fiber. And I was reading that, there's fiber that you get from fruit and vegetables,
Mhm.
and then there's fiber that you would get from legumes, for example.
Mm-hmm.
Is fiber just fiber, or does the type matter when it comes to detoxing?
Right. Yeah. So you want more soluble fiber, but because the average population are coming so under the sort of recommended fiber allowance, I would probably just say fiber's fiber for the purpose of like normalizing or bringing them up to a good level. I think so. So the reason why constipation, maybe it's helpful first to establish what is normal, because people don't often know. So it is optimal to be having a bowel movement once or twice a day. And that bowel movement should be fully formed, and it should be a kind of complete elimination. So often people are going every day, but they would describe them like as small, hard pebbles, or, for whatever reason, it's not a complete evacuation. And therefore, you are going to be likely to be reabsorbing and reactivating hormones. So if you are taking a dose of HRT, but you have no exit route for those hormones, you're going to start recirculating them, and then you might end up in this position of hormone, of particularly estrogen dominance, because the primary route for elimination of estrogen is through the bowel, but you can also sweat it out as well. So that's
sauna. We can sauna it out.
Yes.
All right, let's red light sauna
Definitely,
it out.
like put that on prescription. Yeah. So that's what you're aiming for. And then how you manage it, I would say there are some types of fibers which are more beneficial for stimulating the bowel than others. So what I like to get people to do is the more starchy vegetables, so like your sweet potatoes, parsnips, turnips, regular potatoes, which nobody eats anymore, beetroot, those foods, roast a massive batch once a week, and they will, add them onto your lunch, for example.
That's a great idea.
Yeah, quite easy to do.
I love that idea, because like I said at the beginning, it's like, whatever, eat flaxseed, do this. I mean, there's a million things, but you're making it so easy for us. Like you said, like put the flaxseed in a container, cover it with water, put it in the fridge. Make a big tray on a Sunday of beetroot, carrots, parsnips, potatoes, sweet potatoes, put it in the fridge. That is so helpful.
Yeah, we just have to keep it like, this is, I think so often people come to nutrition and they're very overwhelmed. And there's something like nutrition always gets blamed, and it's sort of like, oh, they're not going to be able to manage to do all of these things. But I actually don't think that's giving women enough credit. They absolutely can if they just have a plan They just know what they're trying to hit. And they know how that's going to benefit them, and they know, what symptom they're expecting to resolve as a result of those kinds of things. But it just does have to be simple and actionable. And we are going to cover like quite a few different food things to do. But if you're just thinking, I'm going to do that once a week, I'm going to do that every day, I'm going to steam an extra portion of broccoli, that's achievable. And to manage your health long term, you do have to do those things,
But I think you can take it in stages.
Exactly.
We talked about it on another episode that regardless of, you're an executive woman flying all over the world every week, or you're a stay-at-home mom, running around with 3 kids, take it in stages. What's the one thing you want to do this week or for this month?
Yeah.
This month I'm going to go for 2 walks and I'm going to roast vegetables for myself every night. That's it. And then once you start developing that, then you can add something on. I know when I see you, like we've had this discussion. I'm like, Flora, I can't take I can't take 8 pills every morning. Like it's just not in my thing. Or this pill's too big. I can't swallow that. Or this tastes like I can't drink it. That's not good. And you're always great at pulling it back and really taking it in stages. And I think that's what we all think, that we have to do it all.
Yeah, and we think that it has to be perfect. And I completely acknowledge that when you're extremely busy, the first thing to go is kind of cooking for yourself. And actually what I would say as well is this doesn't all have to be prepared at home by any means. Like we were talking about a case yesterday, very, very busy woman working from like 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. And we kind of agreed that it would be helpful for her to do one of those like meal kit deliveries, and then stock her fridge with sachets of like Merchant Gourmet lentils or amazing boiled beans, sort of chickpeas or whatever, supplement the meal kit thing that she's able to do with the time that she has, with some extra fibre, or roast a chicken, shred that and have that through. So she's making sure she's getting the protein. Like, you don't have to be cooking it all from scratch. The world is changing. There's more available now.
Yeah, I started buying those merchant, like the 5 grains or something, and then I'll throw that on top of my salad. Because also, if you eat well, I don't know about everybody listening, but I like a lot of variety in my food during the week. So if I was just eating salads over and over, it just gets really boring. So I love those things because they're really great quality.
Yeah.
And then they really change up your meal, like
they
you
do.
said.
And they're actually, so we were talking about kind of key helpful foods for constipation. Beans and legumes are very, very helpful. They are the right sort of fibre. And they're very cheap. And so I would definitely be asking people to try and have those every day, but starting in small amounts, again, especially if you suffer with bloating, starting with a teaspoon, going to a tablespoon, kind of incrementally increasing it that way.
And I want to touch on that point as well, because most people think if they're eating beans and they have gas, that it means that they don't, those don't work for me.
Yes.
Those beans aren't, my body doesn't like those. But actually, that's not true, right?
No, exactly. This is something I see all of the time. So when I get it, when you have a symptom related to a food, you think that food doesn't agree with you. It is much more so about what's happening in the gut and why the gut isn't able to effectively process that food. So in the case of beans and legumes, they're very rich in fibre. They're amazing food for your microbes. And the microbes have this feeding frenzy when they are presented with a new fibre that they don't get often. And they themselves emit gases that you then experience. So it's not to try and cut them out. It's to try and build yourself up to tolerance really, really gently, so that you're feeding those helpful microbes that are going to perform a lot of different functions, one of which is helping with estrogen metabolism.
Quick break to tell you about a fab podcast called Say It Sister with my friends Karen and Lucy, 2 women chatting honestly about life, self-discovery, and healing. It's real, it's raw. It feels like tea with your girlfriends. Please go check it out. Say It Sister, wherever you get your podcasts. Now, back to the conversation. I think what we also want to get across on today's episode is that it is not just about replacing these hormones, your HRT. It's how we make them more effective for you and enhance their performance. But it has a lot to do with your liver, and your gut. I mean, you touched on liver a little bit as well. Do you want to
Yes.
talk a little bit more about that?
I'd love to talk about the liver and the bile. So, your liver, and I think probably what will make people sit up and listen to this is that your liver is your primary fat burning organ. So when you are detoxifying in a sluggish way, everything in the body is going to slow down a little bit, but you also might be prone to gain weight. And it is critical for the safe kind of excretion of these hormones. And there are some, again, in my view, quite simple things that we can do to support your liver function. So the first thing is something that I think is a message that has got out there, which is to do with protein. So just making sure that you have 2 palm-sized portions of protein at every meal. Particularly eggs, I would say, because they've got a lot of choline in them, which is great for the bile. So focusing on protein because you need those amino acids for your phase 2 detox. And then some other very specific things. So the main thing to think about here is bitter foods, which is a taste that the Western palate, like we've lost a taste for. It's your kind of bitter leaves or radishes or lots of ginger. It's those fiery things like rocket, watercress, radicchio, endive. Those are all really beneficial for the liver, but also for the bile flow. And it's the bile that will get things out. So really key to be doing those. So what I get people to do is, again, just consider, like, if I'm having a salad, it will be a bitter leaf salad, and I'll try and have that once a day. And I try and eat that at the beginning of the meal as well. So have that portion first. Like, you could have it as a starter salad, or you just eat it first so that your digestive juices are really starting to activate. And then the other thing that I love people to do is grated ginger in hot water. Sip that through the morning. Have it with lemon, really nice.
But I love this too because, like I've already said, I like a lot of variety. Like, there's only so much romaine lettuce or cause lettuce. So even when next time I'm in the grocery store, I'm gonna just pick up another watercress, or I'll pick up, I don't know, a radish to make my salad. Like, just every week I can just try something new.
Yeah.
And put it on top. I like even maybe putting some rocket on, a piece of steak, or on, like, having that with your meal as well.
Or with beans. Like, I've been having it recently, like creamy tomato beans with like a nice sharp rocket salad. Really nice.
Talking about the liver some more.
Yeah.
What about alcohol?
Yeah. So what I see is that women intuitively are drinking less in this life phase because the hangovers are bad. So, that is a sign that the liver is working overtime and it's struggling to cope with excess toxicity coming in the form of alcohol. So absolutely, you should be managing your alcohol intake. You don't need to take it out completely. Although I do also work with a lot of women who it affects the sleep so significantly that they will just leave it out. But yeah, I would keep it down, but I would still enjoy it.
You still have to live, right?
Yeah.
You still have to live. So a lot of this makes a lot of sense. And it sounds like things we should all be doing anyway.
Yes.
For a healthy lifestyle. I was with a friend last night, actually, and I told her we were going to have this conversation. And she said, well, so the protocol to help excrete or detoxify, metabolize your hormones, is that any different to like a healthy eating diet? And on the surface, it looks like it isn't, right? Like, eat more vegetables, have more fiber, drink more water. Is it the same or is it different?
So I think it's a really valid point that, the features of a high quality diet are not complicated. But I think that when you're trying to manage a particular thing, or in particular, if you're trying to manage a particular symptom, you have to be more specific and targeted with the dietary interventions that you're implementing. Because if you're not managing to do that, you can be eating a healthy whole foods diet without hitting these categories kind of daily that we need to instigate change in the body. So I think it's slightly shifting the mindset to perhaps more so thinking about food on prescription, like these kind of, as I've said throughout, these non-negotiable things that you must be doing in order to affect change. and just drilling down into what's going to be really relevant for the specific thing that you're dealing with. So yes, everybody benefits from bitter leaves and crucifers and, increasing their fibre intake, but it is particularly relevant to be very focused on that in this particular instance.
If you're taking some HRT,
if you're taking HRT,
any hormonal imbalance, it seems, really, like PCOS.
Absolutely. Yeah. Very, very much so. Whenever, the hormones are out of whack, it's typically to do with how, it's not to do with the absolute hormone levels, it's to do with how your body is dealing with them. So it just comes back to that, whatever we're managing. But, menopause is slightly different because it isn't like a female health condition. That is just how the body starts to change. But absolutely, yeah.
I love this idea, food on prescription. So those 2 tablespoons of flaxseed,
yes,
or those 2 portions of cruciferous vegetables on your plate. Think of it that way, just like you would have to take 2 tablets, I don't know, of a supplement or something.
Yeah.
So to drill it back down, what could we say are there 3 or 4 simple nutrition shifts that a woman could make today to get more impact from her HRT?
Yes, I'm trying to think about how to make it super simple. I think maybe if you're holding 5 categories in your mind, if that's not too complex. So you're holding the bitters, those foods. You're thinking about 2 portions of cruciferous vegetables. You're making sure you have your flax seed, and you're focusing on your protein. And then let's leave it there. 4.
And we can even just start with 1 this week. We could just start with go buy a bag of watercress.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or go roast those vegetables and put them in your fridge. Just start with 1, and then each week you can even add another one. How will we know for sure that our body is metabolizing the hormones properly? Is there a test we can take? You mentioned the Dutch test.
Yeah. Yeah. So I do think if you have the means, that it is a super powerful test. So the Dutch test investigates how you're metabolizing estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone. It looks at cortisol, your stress hormone, and it also looks at other interesting markers of like gut dysbiosis and melatonin. And for women who want peace of mind to know that the HRT that they're using is being metabolized safely, that is an amazing thing. We can do that. We can see what the current status is, and then we can kind of get specific with the interventions and also with the supplements that we can layer on top, retest, and see the estrogen literally being steered down that different pathway. So it's really, really powerful. But I also, I'm very, very passionate about women feeling that they can take control themselves and get back in touch with themselves and how they're feeling. If you're clearing your hormones, you're going to feel brighter, more energized. You might start to drop some weight. You're going to feel clearer headed. And then you're on the right track. We don't always need that. I love the data. I love working with that stuff because that really gets us change in a meaningful time. But I wouldn't want people listening to feel that that's like something that they, if they can't access that they wouldn't have the power to make the changes.
I think that's so important. We have outsourced so much of what we're feeling to experts and blood tests. But if we only took 10 minutes every day to sit down with no distractions and tune in to ourselves, like, how am I feeling today? And that is so much more powerful than we give it credit for.
Yeah. Yeah. People will often say, how are we going to know that things have changed? And I'm thinking, you're here to feel better. So if you feel better, you've done it. And you've done that yourself as well. Like we're here to like walk alongside and guide and motivate. But the hard work just happens at home.
What about intermittent fasting? Does that help with the metabolism of hormones as well?
So what I find with the women that we see is they're under a lot of stress. They're managing a lot. They're managing children, aging parents. They have a lot going on. Fasting is a stressor for the body. So I don't love to ask women to fast. I sometimes like to get their blood sugar stable sort of sooner in the morning. There are potential benefits, particularly in other kind of female health conditions, like something like PCOS. But it wouldn't be something that I would typically advocate for. Whilst it's amazing for like cell regeneration, and there are a lot of benefits, if you want to do it, I would keep it managed at like a maximum of a 15-hour fast. And I would really try and just be pulling the dinner early rather than fasting through a stressful day when you're like getting out of the door, getting the kids to school and all of that. I don't think that's beneficial to be pushing your cortisol like that.
Flora, I love this conversation because when we initially talked about it on the telephone, you were saying there's so much negative conversation around HRT. And I really want to talk about how nutrition can enhance its performance in the body. And I think you've given us so much to think about. We know that we have to metabolize, detoxify, and excrete the hormones. There's ways that can help us with that process through nutrition and lifestyle.
Mm-hmm.
Cruciferous veg, flaxseed, the sprouted foods. There are some supplements, some standard supplements like your vitamin C, vitamin D. The glutathione is something people can look into. So thank you for making this more of a MenoPositive conversation and just helping women know that they can have more control over this than they think.
Absolutely. That is my biggest wish, is for more women to feel that they can take control of their health. I just think that's something that has been lost, and that we can kind of restore to people, that even that therapeutically, when women feel empowered like that, they feel better. It's amazing.
Flora, knowing what we know now about how to enhance our HRT to make it safer and more effective, what would you tell our 35-year-old listener?
But I would be making sure that the gut is a super efficient detox organ, so that if at some point I want to take hormone replacement therapy or whatever, I know that is going to be processed really effectively and eliminated. It's also just going to, make you feel amazing as well.
What would you tell our 45-year-old listener?
The 45-year-old listener, I think, is the listener that we've been speaking to throughout this episode. I think that all of those dietary things that we've spoken about, the additional supplementation, and there's others that we haven't touched on, but just to kind of really quickly whip through them, B vitamins, particularly B6, zinc in the picolinate form. I don't want to throw loads of information out there, but we test zinc. I think I've probably seen 1,000 zinc scores, and I've never seen it normal in a woman at 45. So those kinds of things. But I would be moving towards seeing food on prescription at that age.
So 35, I'm hearing like preparing your body, making sure you've increasing the nutrients in your gut. 45, maybe adding some of these supplements into the body.
Mm-hmm.
What would you tell our 55-year-old listener?
So for the 55-year-old listener, what I see a lot at this age is women who are really sometimes sleep is suffering, that they're not feeling well. And sometimes we have to have a difficult conversation about actually managing the lifestyle a little bit, seeing what you could maybe do less of, and trying to take a bit of pressure off here and there to make space for you to be able to really revisit again, like everything that we've spoken about here. Because if that's happening, if that isn't happening at that age, I think that, can run into difficulties.
I have to say, a few years ago, I started doing one less thing a day.
Love that so much.
It was so simple because I would be running around from thing to thing, and I would be like, okay, what's the one thing you can take off your list today? It's been the most empowering thing. And yesterday, a bunch of girlfriends, we were going to see a talk, and my one girlfriend is moving house. She's got 3 kids. She's got like all this stuff going on. And she's the friend that always shows up. She's always there for everybody. And she messaged and she said, girls, I don't think I can make it tonight. And you know what? The rest of us were so happy for her. We were so happy that she said, I can't do this. And we're like, That's totally fine. It's okay. We're so glad you're giving yourself,
You're
freeing
saying
up just a
no.
little bit of space in your already
Yeah.
busy life. That's how much we love you. So I
That is
think one less
so-
thing a day.
That is it. It is those just little boundaries like that. They make space for you to focus on yourself. And I do think that's really important, even though things are so busy.
Flora, thank you so much for coming in and seeing us again. It was great having you here.
Thank you.
I love having you part of our MenoPositive community.
I've loved it. Thank you so much.
As you know, I bake for all my guests.
Oh, you're so sweet. I've bought you some granola as well.
Have you? Oh my gosh. I saw on your Instagram you made some granola.
I know you commented, so I was like, you know what? I'm going to bring Lisa some.
I was going to ask for your recipe. Actually, I am experimenting with dairy-free because, as Flora knows, my daughter is now dairy-free. So this is her favorite. It's chocolate chip banana bread, but it's all dairy-free, chocolate, dairy-free.
Which
whatever.
recipe did you use?
It's my recipe.
Oh,
yes, it's my famous recipe. I
great.
mean, my one aunt says to me, make sure you can make one thing really well.
I love that.
And I think it might be my chocolate chip
This is
banana
honestly
bread.
probably one of my favorite puddings, so that's great.
All right, you want to try some?
Yes, please.
All right, let's tuck in.
Thank you.
Oh.
Oh my God, it looks so chocolatey.
Oh, and by the way, I knew you were MenoPositive when you downloaded this episode. Thank you so much for joining me today. I love bringing this information to you, and I love that you're taking control of your health. You can follow MenoPositive on Instagram, TikTok, and LinkedIn. If you haven't yet, please subscribe, rate, review, and share this podcast. Join me next week as we discover more ways to optimize our bodies. Because together, we're going to redefine menopause.
I got a good feeling.